The Cape Fear Crime Festival is a weekend conference for mystery readers and mystery writers. We're celebrating crime writing and crime fighting. We have readings and panels and demonstrations going on all weekend long. And we have a lot of fun. Fans get to meet the authors and get their books autographed, and brings people into the library, and it's just lots and lots of fun.
Well, I discovered the Cape Fear Crime Festival because I am a reader, and I'm a voracious reader. And I read like about 3 books a week, and our house is full of books. And I get the biggest kick out of meeting the authors. And actually, you get to sit down. This is like the most, we go to different festivals, but this is very informal. And you actually get to sit down and talk with the authors and get to know them a little bit, talk about their grandchildren or whatever. And so it's kind of neat to have, when I've read their books, to get a little bit of background of where they're coming from and everything.
One of my old friends in the mystery business is Katie Munger, a mystery writer from Durham. And she had come to Cape Fear before and was coming again this year. And she and I are working on a project together where we're bringing our old books back into print. We're starting a small publishing company of our own, and so we needed to work on that together, and we don't live physically close to each other, so this was a way for us to be able to work on that as well as go to Cape Fear.
An event like this encourages people to read, which I'm very much in favor of. Not that I don't like television or movies, I love both, but I don't think anything can replace the feeling you get from holding a book in your hands and reading it. So any type of festival that concentrates on the written word, I'm in favor of.
This year we have Bill Bernhardt from Tulsa and John Jefferson of the Body Farm novels, and John Hart, who's a new author out of North Carolina who's doing really, really well. We've got J.A. Conrad from Chicago and Jeff Marks from Cincinnati, and a lot of, Lise McClendon from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. She's from the furthest away. Lots of in-state authors, Sarah Shaber, Katie Munger, J.D. Rhodes, just lots of people, altogether about 30 authors.
And cleaned up by the medical examiner. And he, on the basis of skeletal comparisons and the proximity, this skeleton was found in the neighboring county from the one where this woman, Leoma Patterson, had gone missing. He estimated that this was a middle-aged white female, and he concluded on the basis of the skeletal morphology, also consistencies in the hair, and some jewelry, that this was the missing Leoma Patterson. Now the family was never entirely convinced of that. Now this is, he cleaned the material off, obviously, and you can see again the chewed end of one of the long bones there. But you can see there's no damage to the skull, except the lower jaw is detached, but it's not damaged. One really interesting thing is this woman had all her teeth. Never went to the dentist. There's no dental work, which meant that there was no dental record to compare to. So it wasn't possible to use dental records to get an identification because there was no dental record, which is too bad. But there were a couple of rings found with the bones, not all of these. Now what the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation agent did at the time, which has continued to cause confusion among family members, is he took the couple of rings that were found out in the woods and he laid those out along with jewelry from a lot of other women who worked in the office at the courthouse. And he brought relatives in, and this was like a lineup, a suspect lineup of jewelry. And he asked family members, do you recognize any of these? And a couple of them thought they recognized a couple of these, 1 or 2 of these rings, but then others said, no, Mama didn't ever wear a ring, or the only ring she ever wore was the one that her brother made out of that dime. So there was some disagreement about whether this was her jewelry or not, and that kind of set the tone for a lot of things that have happened, in the years ever since 1979. There has never been agreement within that family about whether or not that was her. But in 1985, a great nephew of Leoma Patterson named Jimmy Ray Maggart confessed to killing his great aunt Leoma. He said he killed her in a drug deal gone bad. She had last been seen alive leaving a bar with Jimmy Ray Maggart and his dad Grover, who was apparently not somebody you would want to leave a bar with, but she did. Anyway, Jimmy Ray said that he had hit her in the head with a tire iron, and he had dumped her body on Bowel Mountain. Well, this body was not found on Bowel Mountain, and you didn't see all sides of the skull, but you saw one side. There was no trauma to that skull. The skull that was found on the lakeshore had no tire iron trauma inflicted to it. It was in great shape. So, you know, that's another reason for some uncertainty about whether that's really her. But after Jimmy Ray confesses to killing her and gets a 6-year sentence for killing her, they bury her in the family cemetery. It's in 1985. Time goes by, 20 years go by. Leoma's 7 children have children, and these grandchildren of Leoma's go to college, unlike most of their parents, get tattoos, start watching CSI, and decide that DNA can tell them once and for all whether or not this really is their grandma in the grave. So a little over 2 years ago, one of Leoma Patterson's granddaughters, who had heard Dr. Bass guest lecture in the chemistry class, called him up, told him the family story, and said, if we can get a court order to exhume that grave, would you be willing to take DNA samples so that we can find out if that's really grandma or not? He said, sure, if you can get the court order, I'll be glad to do that. So in August of 1985, we went up to this remote family cemetery in the hills of Anderson County. It was so remote that the relative who was leading us to the family cemetery got lost on the way up there. This is back in the hills, man. But these are, let's see. Oh, see, I keep thinking you're seeing what I'm pointing to, but you're not. The woman on the far left is, I think, Leoma Patterson's oldest daughter. The woman in the yellow shirt in the front row is also a daughter named Barbara Atkins. On the far right in the pink is Barbara's daughter, Michelle. Let's see, looking over Barbara's left yellow shirted shoulder is Frankie Davis, another daughter. I think those are the only 3 daughters in the picture. And she had a couple of sons, but we never saw any of the sons. It's all women. I mean, it's just the women were running the show, which I guess is not surprising because that's kind of how life works, right? So this is the coffin, and this is inside. You can see, as you can see, yes, not any more bones there now than there were when the medical examiner had them. Actually, fewer because unfortunately the medical examiner lost a couple of bones. Which is unfortunate because one of the bones he lost is the hyoid bone, which is the bone in the throat. It often gets broken in cases of strangulation. And he had, in his autopsy report, he said that the hyoid had possible fractures, but there's no way to go back and check that under a scanning electron microscope now because it's been lost. The family's not too happy about that, understandably. So it's another. You can really see the dog chewing on that femur there.